Okay, sir. So we're starting. Hello, everyone who has joined this session. My name is Abu Bakar Yaqub. I'm a fourth year medical student at King Edward Medical University, Lahore. And on behalf of KemPsych, I would like to warm-heartedly welcome you all. I would first like to take a few minutes to introduce what KemPsych actually is. So in last year's, in the first 2 weeks of September, some students took part in an internship program organized by the Psychiatry Department of Mayo Hospital, Lahore. The purpose of it was to explore the field of psychiatry for those who had joined the psychiatry ward in their respective third year of MBBS here at King Edward Medical University, but also to introduce this field to the students who hadn't been able to attend the psychiatry rotation for any reason. And when the internship was over, we, along with our mentors, directly felt the need for establishing some means to hold these types of co-curricular activities more often. Admitting to the fact that psychiatry and behavioral sciences is just a minor portion of our curriculum of MBBS here in Pakistan, we decided, with the help of seniors and mentors, to form a psychiatry interest group for the keen and inquisitive minds of medical students to provide us all and to you all a platform where together we can teach and learn this fascinating subject that is psychiatry. I would like to introduce our guest for today's session. Our guest today is Dr. Mujeeb U Shad, President of Pakistan American Psychiatry Association of North America, PAPANA. Dr. Shad graduated from Sindh Medical College in 1983. He started his career at a sub-rural dispensary in interior Sindh, followed by teaching anatomy at Sindh Medical College and later at Aga Khan University. After moving to US, Dr. Shad completed his psychiatry residency at the University of Kansas School of Medicine, Wichita, and also completed a 2-year psychopharmacology fellowship in 1998. At the University of Texas, Southwestern Dallas, he completed his master's in clinical sciences. He continued his academic career at the Oregon Health and Sciences University, where he became a full professor in 2019. Currently, Dr. Shad is an adjunct professor at Tuoro University Nevada. He has also authored and co-authored more than 70 peer-reviewed publications and book chapters and has presented at national and international meetings, including UN-sponsored psychopharmacology workshops and seminars in Pakistan. So I welcome you, Dr. Shad. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm Alhamdulillah feeling really great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the efforts. I will talk about that. You guys have put up to promote psychiatry. That is a commendable effort, and I think other universities and medical schools should follow that.
We're honored, sir.
Yeah.
So, sir, I would like to start with the question answer sessions.
Mm.
So, Dr. Shad, would you like to tell us how was your journey through medical school, and as an undergrad student, how was your relationship with psychiatry?
Yeah, that is a great question. Because don't be surprised that I was never interested in psychiatry from the beginning of my career. Actually, it was at the bottom. If anybody would ask me which field you are going to select as the least desirable career, that would be psychiatry. And that is not my fault. And that is not the faults of many others in Pakistan, because there's so much less emphasis on psychiatric teaching. And basically, the exam is actually is another big problem, because you learn few things about schizophrenia and depression, and you think you can pass your exam, and the rest is you do whatever you want to do, any other non-psychiatric field. So I think there are many reasons why psychiatry has never attracted people, especially in Pakistan. But now things are changing. The social media actually has brought so much awareness. I'm actually so excited about seeing our young generation becoming so interested in this really a core medical specialty, without which I think medicine is incomplete. And in the same way, psychiatry is incomplete without medicine. I think the interface between medicine and psychiatry is one of the hottest topic these days, that we need to actually be not be reductionist, and actually think holistically in terms of treatment of patients. So yes, I started my career and I was never interested in psychiatry. But so I remember that we remembered a couple of questions about the depression and schizophrenia, and exactly that's what happened. We passed the exams and graduated. But then I think I believe in fate sometime. Although there's a lot is depends upon your effort and what you want to achieve in your life, and what are your goals. But I think there is some element of fate as well. So I when I started my career, I actually did my, very few people know this, I did my internship in ophthalmology. And because I really liked ophthalmology and I wanted to become an eye surgeon. And so I worked with Dr. Kirmani, who was one of the most famous names in ophthalmology at JPMC, Jinnah Post Medical Graduate Center. And I did my internship with him. And then I appeared in FCPS exam. I passed oral exams 3 times, but every time they used to fail me in the oral exam. So I became very disheartened. I decided to leave my country. I had the option to come to America because I was so disappointed. Maybe I would have been still there if I would have passed the exam. So I don't want to talk about the reason why I failed. Maybe I was not fully prepared. But moving on, I started teaching, and the reason I started teaching anatomy at Sindh Medical College and then later Aga Khan is to prepare for the FCPS 1, because they ask a lot of anatomy and physiology and other things in the FCPS part 1. And so I wanted to be prepared. And that was a good thing because I passed my FCPS written exam 3 times, as I already told you. But then everything, the future seemed very bleak, and a lot of my friends and my classmates were coming to America, and I was feeling kind of lonely. Every friend I had, most friends actually, not every friend, most close friends had either gone to England or they had come to America. So I thought maybe I should venture out and see if America has something to offer for my career. So I came here, and we actually were from a very low, modest, low middle class family, and so I had to really struggle to get the money to buy the ticket, and also at the airport you have to show $1,000, when you come, that you have come to this country and you have some money to show. So I had to borrow that money from a friend. So I'm just talking about how difficult it was, and it seems like yesterday, but it all happened. It looks like a dream now. So I came here. Since I had no money, I was really fortunate to get a phlebotomist job when in the beginning, and that was a blessing because the first check I got was $300, and I am making many fold higher amount of money than that. But those $300 I will never forget, because that was the happiest I was. And with $300, I could only work for a week or two. But when I got that $300, that was per week actually. Yeah. So I got $300, and I actually thought now I should have, because my friends were allowing me to stay with them in an apartment where 8 people were staying. And so I moved out, and I actually moved in with a couple of friends who were living in a studio, renting a studio. So 3 of us went to that studio and started, and I started studying. And there was no job until then. And then I had to work in grocery stores and, the night shifts, and some areas in Coney Island where you would not know whether you will be alive next morning or not, really. Um, so that was the beginning. But then I had a couple of friends who actually were, one was doing a psychopharm fellowship at the Montefiore Medical Center, which is a which is associated with Yeshiva University in Bronx, New York. It's a very famous, it's a relatively famous university, and it is affiliated with the Albert Einstein Medical College. You may have heard about that. So my friend who was doing psychopharm fellowship and another friend who was doing a residency at that time in New York, they both suggested that let the guy who was doing fellowship in psychopharm, let him ask if there is a need for a research assistant or things like that for a respectable position where I can find time to study as well and for the FMGMs. One mistake I made, I didn't pass the exam before coming, and a lot of us made that mistake, but that's okay. Everything, alhamdulillah, successfully turned out to be successful. So no regrets. So I got, so they needed a research assistant, and I started working there. That was the first reasonable job actually I had. And that was the beginning of the end. When I started working there, it was a job in the anxiety depression clinic. And actually, they were doing very cutting edge research at that time. It was 1992. And what they were doing is they were actually putting IV line into the patients, study patient subjects. And they were actually injecting some agent, which I still remember is called fenfluramine. And fenfluramine is a serotonergic agonist, and it actually is anxiety provoking. So they were trying to see if induction of anxiety, what kind of neurotransmitter, what kind of levels, plasma levels of cortisol and other, chemicals and the other stuff they were looking in the blood, what changes occurs after we give fenfluramine. And so I used to put in the line, and I used to every minute I had to monitor the draw a slight blood, so that they can monitor levels and of those labs which they wanted to look at. And one time I had a patient had a panic attack right in front of my eyes after he was injected fenfluramine. I was really fascinated that this is happening right in front of my eyes, and you are changing the brain chemistry by giving this agent, and I guess it was in me that I moved toward brain research and joined psychiatry. So that was the beginning of that was the beginning. And then I decided that after I passed my exams, that there's nothing else I'm going to do. I'm just going to apply for psych residency. And it was blessing in disguise, because the foreign medical graduates at that time only were able to get into either family practice, internal medicine at the most, and pediatrics and psychiatry. Now the situation has completely changed. As you know, psychiatry has become so competitive that it is the second most competitive, specialty in the core medical fields. So yes, so things have changed, but at that time that was an so actually I wanted that. As I told you, I became really interested in psychiatry. So luckily, I got some really good reference letters from the people I was working with. So that actually helped me so much. Not only I got money to survive, but also the letters and the recommendation letters, which actually helped me to get some interviews for psychiatry position. Because when I passed my exams, it was post match, so result didn't come in time, and I had to go for post match. So there were very, very few positions left at that time. If I didn't have those reference letters, I probably would have to wait longer to get into residency. Anyway, so that's how I ended up. It was a long-winded answer to your question, but I guess you want to listen to the hardships and the people have to go through, and learn that never give up. Persistence pays off in every aspect of life, not just in your professional career, but any other aspect. Don't never give up. So that is the lesson.
Right, sir. Sir, one thing I was missing that you in the journey that you just told me, the role of a mentor. So, how would you like to explain the importance of role of a mentor in a person's life in order to excel in any field, and what makes a mentor a good mentor? What are your views
Yeah.
on it?
Yeah, that is actually one of the most important questions. And, I'm glad that you're asking that, because a lot of people don't realize that how important a mentor can be. That actually can make or break your career. That is absolutely right. So I will tell you from my experience that when I was working as a research assistant at the Montefiore Medical Center, um, I actually, frankly speaking, it was not a mentor-mentee relationship. I was just helping them out, gather the data and review the charts and enter the data into the computer. So it was not that, I was writing stuff for abstracts or papers and things like that. I learned a lot, but that was not my relationship as a mentee. But when I applied for the residency, I actually got only 3 interviews, and one of them was in New York with the Mount Sinai Hospital, which is a very nice, reputable program. But they actually looked at my reference letters because they knew some of the people I worked with at the Montefiore Center, and they were interested in me. But they said that we have already filled out the positions. But if you work in our research department, we promise you that we'll give you residency next year. So at least I will have something in hand. But then I went to my second interview in Kansas, Wichita, Kansas. Uh, and So they offered me a position next day because they had one vacant seat. So they offered me a position next day, and I accepted it because I didn't want to wait another year. And one of the reasons why I accepted that position, and by the way, I didn't go for the third interview because I didn't have a license, I didn't have a car, I didn't have money to buy the airline ticket. So I said, well, I have an offer. I don't have to go to the third interview. So I just took that position. And that is also kind of a lesson for the young applicants, that when you're getting an opportunity like that, never reject it, never decline it, because you never know when you're going to get another chance or not. It doesn't matter which program. Once you enter the residency and once you graduate, doesn't matter whether you're coming from Yale, or you're coming from Baylor, or you're coming from Emory, or you're coming from University of Pittsburgh. It doesn't really matter. Nobody asks you where you graduated from. They look at your competency and your work, right? So yes, so basically, main reason why I really wanted this job again is that there was a psychopharm expert internationally known here in a small town of Kansas, Wichita, and he was really looking forward to have me there, and he was excited because I had so much interest in psychopharm and research. His name is Sheldon Prescott. And I think a lot of people who actually look at pharmacogenetics and drug interactions, I think he has tons of work in that area. A very bright guy. Now he's, I think, semi-retired. He used to be the chairman of the department, and now I think so. He was running a psychiatric research institute, which is kind of within the university but privately. So he used to get all the pharmaceutical industry supported phase 3 clinical trials. And I learned so much the research designs and how, the placebo and then the placebo, yeah, and the randomization and statistical analysis and all those things, and recruitment issues, and all those things I learned from him. So basically, the reason and I really feel good about that, that I did that because I learned so much psychopharm from this guy. My foundation, what I teach you guys, is based on the foundation he laid for me. And that's why I tell you guys that if your foundation is strong, you're always going to think in the right direction in psychopharm. It's not an easy field. So doesn't matter whether you study more or not. But if your foundation is strong, you can always be a good psychopharmacologist. So basically, but I'll tell you that talking about the mentorship, um, although he was a big, he played a big role in my career as for me to become a psychopharmacologist. But I don't think that I was directed in the right direction by this guy. And I'm not complaining. Hindsight is always 2020, and I think about what I could have achieved at that time when I was very young and could have done anything. So he actually, um, uh, you know, first you have to look at your mentors. What if they have any interest in keeping you where you are? You have to think about that, right? You have to, if you think like my insights will be helpful to you guys. If you think that somebody is not directing you in the direction where you need to go, and you broaden your horizon and you go to a place where there's more research and more opportunity, not such a small department where you don't have much to grow, right? So I just, I didn't have enough insight at that time, so I stayed. But then after 2 years of doing having a faculty position after graduation at the University of Kansas School of Medicine, Wichita, I actually started thinking about that. And I said, well, I need to move from here because I don't see any growth any further in my career. Psychopharm is very important, but unless I learn neuroimaging and I look at the other aspects of research, now we know that as a translational neuroscience research, I probably am not going to grow. I was very ambitious. I still am. So I moved to University of Pittsburgh, Western Psychiatric Institute and Clinic, which during those times still is a great research center. But during that time, it was the mecca of psychiatric research. People were getting the most grants from NIMH at that time at Western Psych. It still is very popular. So I went there, and there I got a mentor, which I really wanted to discuss. That he actually made a much bigger role in my career development. His name is Machari Keshavan. He's an Indian origin guy, very smart fellow, done a lot of work in first episode is schizophrenia, done a lot of neuroimaging. So that is one of the reason I wanted to hook up with him. So he took me under his wings, and I started learning structural and functional imaging, and started developing some data which I could use to apply for a K award. K award is a very big award in here in America, the biggest training award one can have, because it gives you salary support for 5 years along with research money. So you can not you can do your own research, but at the same time you have enough time to get trained on the stuff you need to be trained to perform your research successfully. So that was really a big opportunity, but I didn't get that grant when I was at in Pittsburgh, because Machari Keshavan moved to Harvard after he moved to Detroit, and then later he moved to Harvard. So he's at Harvard now. But I could not go with him because Detroit was a very small program, and there was not enough salary support for another faculty member. So I was looking around, and then I ended up in Dallas at UT Southwestern, which is also a really great school. It is one of the best private school, private, not actually state supported school, which has a very high rating. I think it's a, I don't know what is the rating right now, but it used to be within, within 10 best medical schools. Anyway, so I ended up there. I started working with Dr. Teminga. He is also a big name in schizophrenia research, especially in terms of psychopharm, new molecules, and doing clinical trials, not pharmaceutical trials, but the other federally NIMH funded studies. So there I got my K award. I was delayed by 2 years, and I got my K award. I was doing functional imaging, and I was trying to look at the biological correlates of self-awareness and insight, which is a huge problem in schizophrenia patients, that they don't recognize that they have a problem, they have a psychiatric illness. And that is one of the reasons why they don't take medications. So that was the reason I wanted to look at insight, and I did self-awareness. So I think mentors are very important. And if I would have gotten a mentor who would have, I may have saved a few years of my life. But then there were some other things which I will discuss later. But the mentorship, your question is absolutely right. The mentors are going to be the biggest factor in your success. So you have to, but the problem is that you sometimes you don't have any say in picking up the mentors for yourself, because I use this expression often: the beggars can't be choosers. Even to get into residency these days is becoming difficult. And then think about your mentorship before you enter a residency. It's a luxury we cannot afford. But just to make a point that after you get into a residency program, and if you have an option to pick a mentor, you talk to people, you talk about that person, you seek their opinion, your advice, that how have they been, and based on that, maybe you can make a better and informed decision.
Right, sir. So, sir, you mentioned that in your years of undergrad student, you didn't used to get any more questions than the depression or schizophrenia in your exam, and maybe you might not have spent much time in studying psychiatry at that time as well. So, still, if you could compare the system of psychiatry in Pakistan and how psychiatry is practiced all over the world, specifically in US, how would you compare these two? The system of psychiatry in Pakistan and maybe all around the world, in specifically in US.
Yes, I know only few countries in terms of psychiatric practice and importance of psychiatry. I think psychiatry is not only a problem in Pakistan, but it is all over the world. And the reason is that psychiatry is, by some people, actually is considered even a non-medical field. Still, people ask me, are you a psychologist or a psychiatrist? Um, so you have to explain that psychologists don't have to go through medical school. In most cases, they don't have privilege to prescribe psychotropic medications. I'm a full doctor. I have gone through medical training. So there is a lot of stigma against a psychiatrist and psychotropic treatments and medications and diagnosis. Yeah. So this is true worldwide. But I would say one thing, that in Pakistan, in the universities and the medical school, uh, the level of training, there's no comparison between America and Pakistan. You guys are going to change that. That is my biggest hope, because we will help you guys as much as we can. I always, when I go to Pakistan, I try to give lectures whenever I can, and whoever asks me, I volunteer right away. So I think that is a very important thing. The major difference is in the training. Um, but let me tell you one more thing. There's so many different complexities into this issue that uh, even here in America, uh, the training is not keeping pace with the development in the neurosciences. And I feel very upset and irritated by that, because several years back, there always has been a gap between research and clinical practice and training, right? We know that. But that gap is widening now. And it is not widening from one angle. It is widening from both the sides, both the spectrums. For example, what I'm trying to say is that the psychiatry training is actually suffering because the financial support for residency programs is declining because of the budget situation and the financial things happening all over the world, not just here in America. So what especially the community residency, psychiatry residency programs, what they have to do is to support a resident's salary, they have to outsource them, literally. And so the outsourcing means that they are going to go work maybe at a veteran administration hospital, a VA hospital, and the VA is going to pay for their services. So their salaries can be supported. But majority of times, the supervision they get at those hospitals is either non-existent or below the par. Um, and that is actually is one of the reason, not the only reason, but one of the reason why psychiatric training is going down. Also, the fact that there are very, very few teachers who can really teach psychopharmacology. Uh, you may have seen from my lectures that even attendings who sometimes listen to my presentations, they say that, oh, no, nobody talked to us like that, uh, uh, telling us the reason why there is a mechanism of action of a drug and what does that mean clinically. What are the pros and cons? Because there's nothing perfect in psychopharmacology. So what are the good things? What are the bad things? How should we apply that to the clinical presentation of our patients to make more better decisions in terms of selection of psychotropic medication? So that type of teaching, and unfortunately, I'm not, kind of trying to brag what I know, but I have been lucky because I've been trained in so many different fields. Like you just heard, I told you about psychopharm. Then I told you about imaging. Those are the two major things. And now for the last 5, 6 years, I've also been involved in pharmacogenomic and pharmacogenetic research. I got funded for a couple of studies, and one of the study ended, and I'm trying to analyze the data to publish the results. So when you combine these three things, and on top of that, a lot of other things which I have worked in and interested have been interested significantly in those areas, is, for example, nutraceuticals. I love curcumin, which is the active principle of turmeric powder. And as a matter of fact, I think I may forget to tell you right now. Um, I actually, I don't know what is going to happen, but we have submitted a couple of studies with your professor, Dr. Hashmi, because there was an announcement here by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation that they are going to fund studies in the third world countries, give some money. So I actually came across that RFA, and then I spoke to Dr. Hashmi, and he was extremely interested. So we actually have submitted a couple of letter of intent for research in with curcumin, which is the active principle of turmeric powder. And also there is another African plant. There is a alkaloid which comes from that, is called zembrin. So those two we have submitted. So we'll see whether we are asked to submit a full proposal or not. But I just wanted to tell you that I have tried in the past many times to work with some other attendings at some other universities, but nobody has responded that well as Dr. Hashmi. So that credit goes to him. I'm really excited to have this opportunity. So anyway, in response to your question, I think basically, you have to think about your career and your mentors and what and then you have to pick a certain area of your interest, because I have been involved in so many different things in terms of my experiences, but that has pros and cons. Pros is that I can teach, I can combine all those training and experience I've had and communicate that to the residents and the medical students. That is good for them. But then what I being distracted in so many different fields, maybe I would have received more fundings if I was just in one area. But the problem with that, again, so there's nothing perfect in life. I think I didn't tell you why didn't I get any further funding after my K award. That is an important thing which I would like to tell you. So it could have been my fault. I don't hesitate to admit that. But I think some of you might know this. But if you don't know, when I finished my K award in 2012, um, the NIMH came out with a proposal that they are only going to fund the studies which actually are addressing the research domain criteria set by them. And what research domain criteria meant at that time is that they identified anger, aggression, depressed mood, psychosis, and things which are, beyond DSM-4 or 5. They wanted to, because they thought that so far the research which has actually looked at the syndromic diagnoses from DSM-4 were not successful. They have not made the breakthroughs which they wanted to, despite a lot of money given to the researchers. So they wanted to deviate from syndromic research to a symptomatic kind of a domain, identify a core domain, and to work in that. So I just happened to be at at that juncture of history where my area, self-awareness, was not one of the core domains. So I tried to modify it, to kind of appeal to them based on their criteria, but I could never convince them. So I didn't get any more funding. Otherwise, I probably would be doing much more research than maybe teaching. I love teaching though, definitely, as you guys know, but maybe more research, hardcore research. So that is one thing which was unfortunate. But then I never gave up. I got some studies from Stanley Foundation, which is a private funding institution. So I actually studied the minocycline, which is an antibiotic drug. But minocycline is a very potent anti-inflammatory drug. So when you combine it with antipsychotic medications to augment antipsychotic response, you actually can improve some of the negative symptoms and cognitive symptoms. And so I wanted to do that. So I got that funding. But and then later on, I was funded for these pharmacogenomic projects. And before that, I actually got some fundings from the VA hospitals, the Veterans Administration hospitals. So I've had some funding and some pharmaceutical supported grants as well, but not anything major except the K award from the federal funding from NIMH. So I didn't know. I went on a tangent. I may have not answered your question, but please repeat the question if you want further detail on that.
No, sir, you answered the question brilliantly, but I would
Yeah.
like to ask another question related to it.
Mhm.
After you just described the situation of psychiatry there, that the field of psychiatry is developing, but the training is not keeping up with it.
Yeah.
So, would you recommend foreign training to the aspiring psychiatrists, whether they should go to for countries like US or UK in order to better enhance their skills and better get a better command over their skills, and then come back to Pakistan or not? Would you recommend foreign training for those aspiring psychiatrists or not?
Um, yeah, that is a very practical question. I think highly relevant question to you guys. To you guys, um, I think if you know the social media is just so strong these days. Like, can you imagine? Some of you guys are sitting in Pakistan. I think most of you are sitting in Pakistan. I'm sitting here on the West Coast, near the West Coast in Las Vegas, and we are communicating so nicely. I think it can be done even when you are still in Pakistan, right? Um, I think we are developing these platforms like Papana and some other platforms where we can actually with our growing resources and financial feasibility and viability and all the things, because we are relatively new in terms of professional organization, although we have existed for years, but we have become tax exempt organization just last 2 or 3 years. So I think we are, and that is quite new, in because we just started our website and everything. But I think we can build up platforms where we can do, like we started doing research with the King Edward, with your professor there, and this will grow, inshallah. This will grow, and I told Dr. Hashmi, this is just the beginning. This partnership will, as long as I live, at least, I'll be willing to work with our Pakistani friends. And in terms of this your group, KemPsych, these are the steps in the right direction. I think you're getting all the webinars, you are getting psychopharm lectures now. At least from me, there are a lot of other people doing this stuff too, and you're getting all the how to apply prepare applications and how all those things, and then in the in the process you're learning really good aspects of psychiatry. So I think it is not that it is impossible while you're still in Pakistan, but I think one of the things which I emphasize all the times, it is the environment. Sometimes the environment, working clinical work for me does not interest me anymore now, despite the fact that I have not made as much money as some of the private practitioners and the people who work in groups have made. But I no regrets. I get bored with just the clinical work. I have to have research, I have to have teaching, I have to have clinical work as well, because it's not complete without clinical work. Yes, so I think the motivating environment where other people thinking at your level, although you can develop that group, and I think you have some of those people over there too. So again, it is not a black and white answer. There's a lot of gray, and I would say this, that I've interacted with Yushe. I don't know about others so much, but Yushe is developing quite an expertise in psychopharmacology. I don't know whether he's attending. I'm sure he's attending. So I always give him compliment that his efforts, and he's working with another famous professor here in America, and so he's learning him from him too. But I think these are the things, if he can do it, why can't you do it? It's a challenge for you guys. So it can be done. So nobody can these days cry out that, oh, I was not able to learn anything because I'm in Pakistan. No, that is not true.
Right, sir. So, sir, keeping what you said in hindsight, that many people, even in the medical community itself, don't consider psychiatry as a genuine part of medicine.
Yeah.
So, what do you think we can do in order to clear the name of psychiatry in the view of general public or even the medical community? In order to clear those misconceptions, do we have to
Yeah.
work on our core values? Do we have to improve our work ethics? What can we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. You've really prepared some good questions. I think psychiatrists, first let me say, because this is the first thought, and I speak about this all the times. I think psychiatrists have not created a good name for themselves. I think the way they treat the patients, just to make money, and not knowing much about treatments, especially psychopharmacology, using polypharmacy at mega dosages, which actually hurt the people rather than help them. We have talked about that. It actually make them worse, even, and they give up medication then because they think they were better off without the medication. So I just, and that's true here too in America, not just in Pakistan. Actually, it is very true here as well. People are not getting appropriate training, and they go out in practice, and they want to make money. Um, um, and basically, what that results into is that sometimes uh, malpractice kind of issues, where You are giving stimulants without a proper diagnosis of ADHD. You are giving benzodiazepines like Xanax or alprazolam, which is the most addictive benzodiazepine ever in the history of humanity. And you are creating more problems for them rather than helping them out. And then you are making them addicted to narcotic analgesics. So is that the role of a psychiatrist? I'm ashamed sometimes to look at these kind of people who are creating such a bad name for us. So I think this young generation have to change this misperception. Actually, I would not call it misperception, but some of it is true, as I just stated. You guys are going to change it, and I don't know, sometimes, I've seen world, the years I've spent, that, and I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but when I looked at yesterday, I always see that the things, rather than improving, have become, there are some bright spots, I'm not going to say that, but things are the only hope is this social media and the young generation which is coming up. So that is the silver lining in these dark times, relatively speaking, because of all what is happening with the COVID and all the environmental changes and the heat and the climate change. And there's very less consolation for one to be happy about these days. But they, Allah Malik, inshallah, something will happen positive.
So, sir, my next question is slightly personal. Has being a psychiatrist helped you evolve as a person or deal with day-to-day problems that you face in a more mature or a better way?
Yeah, that is another good question. You know what people say when you become a psychiatrist, that you must have had psychiatric problems and psychological problems, that you're becoming a psychiatrist. And maybe there is some truth to that, because there are two famous defense mechanisms. They are not that mature, unfortunately. One is intellectualization and one is rationalization. So we do sometimes, it may be one of the reason. um, but I think, overall, I would tell you that, my ability after becoming a psychiatrist and reading all the sensory motor stages and the Erickson's stages of life, and Margaret Mahler's theories, and Bowlby's attachment and grief and loss and all those things, and many others. I actually am able to understand people better. My frustration tolerance, or in response to people behavior, has really gone up. I will be very honest with you guys. When I came here in America, one of the cultural problems I had was I could not look into the eyes of my professor, the supervisor, because that's not how we are trained in Pakistan. And somebody said, look, Mujeeb, if you are not going to look into their eyes, they are not going to think very highly of you, because they think you have a lower self-esteem, and you don't have any courage and you have kind of introvert personality. And remember that when you look at the autistic behavior, these autistic patients actually are not able to look into people's eyes. So sometimes they might think I'm autistic, just to make the point. But so there's try to change that. So I worked very hard towards that, and I don't have that problem anymore. But I think I've learned so much from psychiatry. I used to have another, see, sometimes a big conflict is created between your religious beliefs and the psychiatric beliefs, and you have to deal with that. Let me tell you frankly, you guys must be thinking about that. If you ever think about the attitudes towards gay and lesbians, and those kind of people, and and transsexualist and all those people. Uh, I used to develop negative countertransference against them all the times. But then I started thinking, that, is their problem. What is going to happen to them after death is between them and their God, right? My job here is to give them comfort as much as I can. So I had to work hard, because the cultural and the religious background I come from. Another thing I learned is that all Jewish people are not bad. As the Pakistanis things, actually majority of them just like us, they are good people. Because the letter of references which I was talking about were all given by Jewish people, and they really, really liked me and used to hug me. Even now they meet me and they hug me. So these are the experience which I don't think I would have learned if I was not a psychiatrist, or maybe I would have gone through these experiences but may have failed to understand their meaning. We can talk about that more, but I don't think we have time. But you got the gist of my thought process.
So, sir, we're coming to an end of the session. We're close to the end of the session. I would like to answer a few questions for the aspiring psychiatrist. What advice would you like to give a medical student who is aspiring to become a psychiatrist?
Yeah. So basically, the first advice I would give is that to become a good psychiatrist or even a good physician in general sense, you have to take care of yourself. Make a good, kind of a combination of where you can enjoy life too. Just don't all the time just study and read and try to be serious, and meet with friends, go out, study as well, because you will remember, you will remember me saying this, that you will actually do better. Let me tell you one thing which I failed to tell you before, is that I'm a musician. I play keyboard, and I play a flute, and I sing with the harmonium. I've been singing for years. And that is one of the reason why I think is that, the night when I was giving my intermediate exams, I was performing at a friend's house, right? So that is one of the reason I didn't get enough marks to get into Dow Medical College. So I was a little bit less than the entry marks for Dow Medical. So I ended up in Sindh Medical College, which was actually a blessing in disguise, because Sindh Medical College environment was much better. It was a fresh college, and there were a lot of kind of interactions between medical students, and there was a better, friendlier environment, not so politicized, as it was in Dow Medical. So everything turned out to be good. But again, people don't believe that the one who used to sing all the time and play flute and this and that, he has become a professor in America, right? So they still become surprised, but there's nothing to surprise. Extracurricular activities actually make you a whole complete person. If you don't have interest, you don't have hobbies, you don't have venues to express yourself, and you everything jammed up inside, it's not going to be helpful and healthy for you. So that is my first message, and I took a lot of time to explain that, but that's very important message. And then what you can do is try to find people who can be good mentors to you, who can really teach you and kind of move you into the right direction, as we were talking a whole lot before in response to your question. And then physical health, being physically healthy, don't underestimate that. And your social interactions. Those are the essence of life. Social interaction actually is the biggest predictor of longevity of life. So never give that up just for the sake of studies. Do everything in balance. Keep a balanced life.
Okay, sir, we have a question in here by a participant in the chat box. I would like to read it to you.
Yeah.
Professor Shah, do you think psychiatry training positions in the US will mostly be filled by US grads in the future? And why do you think this specialty is getting more popularity with each passing year?
Yeah. I think you may have some idea into that, but let me elaborate a little bit on that. I think I think let me go first. Why psychiatry is becoming so? Because that will answer other question. Um, the reason why psychiatry is becoming so popular is because first the lifestyle is very good. You almost never have to go to the ER in the middle of the night. You can just ask the nurse to admit the patient, and then I'll come and see the patient in the morning. Right? That is first thing, which is true hardly for any other field. Very few fields offer that. The starting salary is huge, which never used to be the case. My friend used to make fun of me. Mujib, why are you going to psychiatry? You know, you are going to be just like a psychologist, and you won't make much money, and it's not a real medical field. But I look at them, and we don't talk about that, but they know that situation is completely reversed now. So the American medical graduates look at the starting salary, they look at the lifestyle, they look at the demand. As a matter of fact, let me tell you, out of these 50 states in America, if you are a psychiatrist, you can go anywhere, any city. That is true. There are jobs everywhere. So if you want to live in San Francisco, you can go to San Francisco. You want to live in San Diego, you can go and live in San Diego. So, so those are the reasons why the American graduates are being attracted, and this has become the second most competitive field now, right now in the core specialties, right? So those are the major reasons, and I think uh, uh, one thing which I actually am not so happy about is that when you think about quality of life and the money you can make, and then you become a psychiatrist, you're not going to be most probably a good psychiatrist, because you need to have an aptitude to become a psychiatrist. Otherwise, you can have a good quality of life, you can have money, but then when you really look at the quality of life which you would have enjoyed more being an internist, for example, and you don't like talking to people, you don't like to listen to people, you're not a good listener, you're not empathic, um, you don't have the ability to identify with people, and be warm to people, then it can become a curse. So that is the thing I'm worried about. So another word of advice for all of you: pick psychiatry if you really like it, because this is not for everybody.
Sir, we have another question in the chat box. Heading a residency program yourself, what are the qualities that you will be looking for in a residency applicant?
So if it was under my control, I would actually not look at the scores, I would look at the person. But unfortunately, that's above my pay grade. And programs have uh, screening thresholds. They have screening parameters where, if you certain scores or a certain age, before after you graduated, how long you have been out there. And so these are the one of the biggest the two biggest factors which affect foreign medical graduates. And obviously, they compare between foreign medical graduates and the American graduates. We will do the same thing if this was our country. We'll try to give residencies to our own applicants, right? So I'm not trying to justify it, but this is human nature. You can never remove certain biases from human nature. We actually could have been worse than them if we had that power within ourselves. Anyway, so I think I look. So I will try to do my best. We have not set any parameters right now because we just got the ACGME visit. So we'll hear about whether our program is going to be approved or not. Hopefully, it will be, and then we will decide the policy. Well, I will try to do my best to actually not make the scores as the biggest point, or even the age of the applicant, or how long, how many years the patient graduated from the medical school. So those are the things which, for me at least, are not the most important things. For me, when I talk to a person, I have enough experience to judge people, and I can be wrong at times. People can be wrong, but most of the time, I probably will pick people who are residents who are going to be much more motivated to learn, and hardworking and intelligent and smart, and at the same time sociable and personable, because that is the biggest quality. And a lot of time people pick residents based on their scores and their freshness from the medical school, which never sometimes doesn't work out, because the problem is that if they don't have the personal warmth, and they don't have ability to identify with the patient and develop a therapeutic rapport and alliance with the patient, and they are not empathic, and they are interruptive, and they are reactive, and they don't listen to the patient, then what's the point? You can be a really good surgeon if you're like that, but you cannot be a good psychiatrist. So yeah, so that is my 2 cents worth on that. If I had uh, my power, and if I could decide by myself, I would actually base everything on the interview.
So you answered very, very nicely. You actually answered another question that we had in the previous, but that question was, what are the good qualities of a psychiatrist? But you already answered that. I would like to ask just two more questions. It will take hardly 6, 7 to 8
No
minutes.
problem. No problem.
Sir, another question is, can you please talk about psychiatry residency interview? The problem now is applicant is getting interviews, but they don't end up matching.
So the question is, they get interviews, but they don't
Don't
match.
end up. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Um, One of the thing which COVID brought us the gift of is that virtual interviews. And so this has been a huge problem last year. And I don't know whether they are going to address those problems this year or not, because the Delta variant is coming back, and maybe we will have to do virtual interviews again. So the problem is that when you have virtual interviews, you first of all, you don't get good assessment of an applicant, because remember what I told you, the personal interaction which I can have with an applicant and judge his or her personality, there's no replacement for that. Maybe I'm a old school of thought, but that's what I think, right? But anyway, the other problem with virtual interviews is that a lot of times a certain group of applicants get all the interviews because they have better CV or better scores or things like that. And then the people who don't have those things up to the par, but they still are great applicants based on their personalities and kind of a whole person, not just a studious guy, right? As we were talking earlier. Um, then they end up, even if they get interviews, they are not successful in most cases. So virtual interviews, because of the COVID situation, have really caused, and this is not just true for the foreign medical graduates, even the American medical graduates have suffered from this. So if this is any consolation to you guys, actually there are American medical graduates who didn't get into psych residency. It has become so competitive.
So, sir, last question today. We started with Yushe Bhai. You greeted him in the start of the session, and you mentioned you didn't know whether Yushe Bhai was present in the session or not. In fact, he is actually present, and he's asking the question. His thank his Yushe Bhai says, "Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your story. It is full of ambition, as you just mentioned. You
Mhm.
still are so ambitious. So, what is it that drives you and keeps you ambitious? Ambitious, after all these years?
Yeah, yeah, this is really one of the best questions, because how do you keep the flame alive, burning, right? Because with the age, you become slow, and there's common misperception that your brain stops working in the same capacity as you were young. Those are completely myths. Those are misperceptions. As a matter of fact, to tell you frankly, and I'll answer the other aspects of the question as well later, but to tell you frankly, this is actually, this is the age where I have started enjoying writing so much that I really actually enjoy writing, reviewing papers, reviewing abstracts. For example, the applicants submitted a lot of abstracts to Papana, and I reviewed a lot of them last a couple of weeks back, maybe more than that. So I really enjoy. I've been quite, mashallah, productive in terms of publishing papers and stuff like that. And I one thing is I never give up. If somebody rejects my paper, I improve it as much as I can. I resubmit it. So far, I have not failed, except one paper, to ever get published, what I've submitted. So again, the main point is persistence, persistence, and persistence, right? Never give up. But I think, coming back to the question, can you repeat the second part of the question, please? I forgot.
What keeps you ambitious?
Yeah. So what keeps me ambitious? I think it is the same thing. When you learn, you keep on learning. You keep on learning new stuff, very exciting stuff happening in neurosciences and brain research. That further motivates you, because the reason it motivates you is because you start to realize how little you know, and the quest never ends. You want to learn more and more and more. I get easily distracted by, I'm looking for something, and then I find something. Oh my god, this is really looks very interesting. So I try to learn from that, and then come back to what I was trying to do. This is something which has grown with my age. Even when I'm sleeping, or getting up from my sleep, or going to bed at night, I'm thinking about, oh, how can I address that problem? And then I figure it out. One of the things which I've learned is that when you are stuck at a certain point, and this is probably a very good advice for all of you. When you get stuck at a certain point, you're writing something, right? And you're frustrated. Why is it not reading right? Give it up. Wake up next morning, come to the paper, you'll find the answer. So don't waste your time when you're stuck. Give it up, because let me tell you another thing. When I write something, and I next it, the opposite is true too. When I look at it next morning, what crap I have written, this is not good. So I try to correct it and revise it. And so my mentor told me one time, when I was very frustrated, trying to correct my, the red ink which he used to use on my papers. And I would get frustrated, because one time I would submit, he would red ink it throughout, from the beginning to the end. And then I would make those changes and resubmit it. It will happen again. And the third time, the same thing. So one day I got frustrated. I said, why don't you do all the corrections at one time, so I can just correct everything at the same time? So he left, because he knew that I was frustrated. He said, look, Mujib, remember one lesson, and I've never forgotten that, is that writing is rewriting, rewriting, infinite rewriting. Let me tell you, there's no perfect writing. You can always improve your writing. You want to work on 1,000 days, you will still make improvements. If you can take one message home, that is the one. So yes, why ambition? I remain ambitious, because I can absorb more at this age. I can learn more at this age. And it's fascinating that the things I didn't used to understand before are just becoming easy for me. Why? Because my brain has developed all those synapses of all the brain exercise I've done through the years of my training and my research work and teaching. And remember, always teach, because without teaching, you're not going to learn as much as you would with teaching. Because teaching, if you really want to learn something, please teach. Never forget that. Write these things down and keep on remembering, revising them, because these are some of the things I've learned through life. And you're not going to probably nobody gets a second chance. So start at a young age, develop these good habits, and you'll be a great psychiatrist.
So that was the last question for today.
Yeah.
Sir, I would personally like to thank you so much for joining us in this session and accepting our invite. You're
Yeah.
such a powerful personality, mashallah.
Thank
We
you.
hope.
Thank you so thank you so much. And again, I wanted to congratulate you guys that you've created this unique program, first time ever in Pakistan. And please motivate other universities and other schools too, because I'm sure there is budding talent who actually have psychiatric aptitude and becoming psychiatrist and helping the nation as a whole, because this needs to be done by others, and this is really, I'm quite excited to be kind of talking to you guys, because you're the future of psychiatry. Thank you so much, and good night, but good day for you guys, right? Okay,
We
Khuda
hope the
Hafiz.
best for your future endeavors, sir. Inshallah.
Yeah, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.